The Complete Mouse by Art Spiegelman is a graphic novel which narrates his father's experience during the Holocaust. Vladek's encounters are illustrated as flashbacks. The present focuses on Vladek's dysfunctional relationship with Art and his relationship with his current wife, Mala. Spiegelman uses animal heads to represent races such as mice for Jews, cats for Germans, and dogs for Americans. The novel begins with Art visiting Vladek after some time. He is interested in writing a comic book based on his father's encounters during the war in Poland. He also wants to know more about his mother Anya, who committed suicide in 1968. Vladek begins his story with his marriage to Anya in 1937 and the birth of his first son, Artie's brother, Rishu. Shortly after Rishu's birth, Anya suffers postnatal depression. She and Vladek retreat to a sanitarium. During their journey, they see the Nazi swastika flag for the first time. In 1939, Vladek is drafted to the Polish Reserve's army. After a few months, he is released and rejoins his family. The laws against Jews have become strict, and the penalties are severe. A notice is given for all Jews to register at Dean Stadium in 1942. Vladek and Anya have their passports stamped and are allowed to go home. Those that didn't weren't heard of again. In 1943, Vladek and his family are moved to the Shordula ghettos. Rishu is sent with his aunt Tasha to Zawirsy for his safety. However, German Nazis eventually invade, and adamant that she won't die at the gas chambers, Tasha poisons Rishu and herself. Vladek and Anya hide out in a bunker, but they are finally found and sent to a building in Shordula. Vladek describes it as a ghetto inside the ghetto. Anya and Vladek sneak away and finally seek refuge with Mrs. Kauka. They make the decision to be smuggled out to Hungary, but are captured by the German Gestapos and taken to Auschwitz. Vladek is imprisoned in Auschwitz I and Anya at Auschwitz II, Birkenau. On arrival, Vladek's first job is tutoring a capo English. The conditions are favorable. He has access to food and shelter. He also avoids being taken away for labor work. Eventually, he is assigned as a tinsmith, since the capo can no longer keep him in the quarantine block. For breakfast, the prisoners receive soup made from roots. They are also given a small piece of bread which has the texture of glass, since sawdust is mixed with the flour. The majority of prisoners eat their piece immediately, but Vladek always saves half for later. For dinner, they are given spoiled cheese or jam. During this time, Anya and Vladek exchange letters. Vladek travels to Birkenau to work and is briefly reunited with Anya during 1944. Vladek inquires about a shoemaker position. Although he has no experience, whilst living in the ghetto he watched how shoes were repaired. The capo sees his shoe-fixing ability and hires him. Vladek's workshop is eventually shut down, and he is taken back to the main camp for black work, which involves carrying big rocks and digging holes. He gives Art his recount of the gas chambers and the crematorium, as he was required to do some work in the gas chambers. With the Russians on their way, prisoners are forced to march out of Auschwitz. They eventually board a train and are transported to Dachau. At this camp, Vladek contracts typhus and becomes very ill. A capo makes an announcement that prisoners who are strong to travel will be exchanged as war prisoners at the Swiss border. Vladek boards the train, but they aren't taken to the Swiss border. They are ordered to depart the train and board a freight train. American soldiers will be in the next town. After half an hour, prisoners exit the train, but the Americans are nowhere in sight. They are halted by the German patrol and captured. Vladek hides out in a barn, and soon the Americans arrive. They are moved to a displaced persons camp and given identity papers. Vladek hears Anya is still alive and makes his way back to Poland where they are reunited.